I'd like to call the Danville City Commission meeting together to order. This is our regular meeting. Today is Monday, April the 14th. We're starting at 4:30 p.m. Commissioner Collar, we pray, is on his way. We're going to start off our meeting with a word of prayer led by Commissioner Siri, and then we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Commissioner Siri?
Yeah, I'd like for us to take a moment of silence and think about the tragedies that we had last week that were caused by Mother Nature. We can't help that, but it displaced a lot of folks and ruined a lot of property, and they're going through a lot of grief. So let's think about them and their families, if you would, please. And I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I want to welcome you all again and say thanks for your attendance here this afternoon. And for you young folks, if you stay around, you get to see your local city government in action. This is the real thing this afternoon. The decisions that are made this afternoon will be binding, they'll be law-abiding, and they'll be hopefully be made in the best interest of all the citizens in our community. So we welcome all of you all to our meeting tonight. We're going to change our agenda because we know there's some people here who want to talk to us and give us an opportunity to listen to them. So I'm going to entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda with the following changes. We're going to move, number one, the DCA recognition up to where after we approve our agenda. And then we're going to move number 10, the Shakertown Road zone change discussion, up to right after we have our first Hear the Public. And for those who are here for the first time, when we hear the public, the commission and the mayor do exactly that. You get 3 minutes or less to speak your piece to us, identify yourself, and we will listen. And then if we have 15 people wanting to talk tonight about the same issue, because I know where some of you all live, so I would ask a favor tonight. And that is that if the first person comes up to talks about the issue and you're going to say the exact same thing, still come up, be recognized, state your name, and then say, I ditto or I agree with the following people. You know, no sense in us hearing the same thing over and over again. And then before I do that, I turn you all loose. I want to thank you all for all the entertainment I received this weekend. I think I got 97 emails this weekend. But they were good because they all were about the same topic, but all of you all took it from a different approach. So it was very educational for me to read those emails. And when you didn't include the rest of the commission on the email to the mayor, I forwarded your email to the rest of the commission. I did not want them to miss out on the chance to get that entertainment. So with that said, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, say aye.
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 Those opposed, likewise, motion carries. Thank you all. So let's ask the DCA men and women's basketball team representatives to come forward and stand in front of the podium and face the crowd. And we want the audience to start throwing things at you all while you're standing there, but come on up. Okay, Coach, you want to say something? Who's going to start us off? Well, let's let the commission do our thing first of all, okay?
Oh, you want me to read this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The mayor asked me to read what we are honoring DCA for. I'm sorry not to see my niece here today, but I got to see all you guys. The boys team finished a 29-4 record, undefeated in Region 12 play at 20-0, All-A Classic State Championship, 45th District Championship, 12th Region Championship, and earning a first-ever Sweet 16 appearance in DCA boys basketball history. So congratulations, boys. Okay, now for the girls' team. The girls' team had a stellar 27-8 overall, a 15-1 record in the Regional 12, undefeated 11-0 mark in the 45th district play, All-A Classic State Championship as well. This made DCA the very first school in the 45-year history of the tournament to win both girls and boys titles in the same year. So that's very impressive. And last but not least, the Lady Warriors followed up, winning the 45th District Championship, the 12th Region Championship, and advancing to the Sweet 16 for the second consecutive year, where they made an incredible run to the Final Four in the state. So.
Commissioner, you want to come down and we want to present the players of both teams and the coaches. Small token of appreciation, congratulations. We call it a lapel pin size key to the city. And then when this is all over with, before we hear from the public, Commissioner Collo, he took it out of it, but Commissioner Suri and Commissioner Collo and Commissioner Atkins are going to take three of these guys out back for a 3-on-3.
Spread her out. I'll start down here.
And be sure you coaches take a lapel pin for the absent members of the girls and the boys team. I'm sorry, the men and the women's team.
Okay, well, you all get up. I'm gonna have to stand over here.
Ready, 1, 2, 3. All right, big smile. Let's go, 1, 2, 3.
All right. You here, right?
Do we leave? Do we leave now? Thank you. Do we leave now? Thank you.
And I'm fishing, I'm basketball game out, right?
Thank you, I really appreciate it. She's gonna do that for the girls. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.
I think that guy's grown a whole foot since the last time I stood beside him. Man. Whew. Wonder where Commissioner Clark is. Okay, let's, oh, yeah, right about that, okay. All right, let's go right along with our agenda then. Next on the agenda is a section of our meeting where we hear from the public. And then this is the first opportunity that we hear from the public. And as I stated earlier, we will not respond back to you, but we will listen to you. You will find us taking notes as well as some staff people taking notes. We would ask you to raise your hand, be recognized. You get 3 minutes or less at the podium, and we'll just see how it goes tonight. But again, I want to just reemphasize about your presence here. We thank you for your presence. So who's going to be first? Yes, sir. Gotta be about something on the agenda, right? Yes, sir. All right. I forgot to say that. I know you know the rules, right?
Hey, and it's a complimentary statement here.
Wow, 2 meetings in a row? Come on, dude. You're a road.
Steve Klein, resident of Danville. I'm employed by the CVB and I work in the Visitors Bureau and gift shop. And what I just wanted to compliment the city and the engineers, whoever. I know you're getting this award as far as the streetscape, but probably 3 or 4 times a week we have out-of-town guests, out-of-staters come in and compliment how Main Street looks. And that kind of leads it right in to makes my job a whole lot easier as far as, you know, we can talk about the streetscape, all kinds of different restaurants on Main Street, the Glass Museum and everything. And I just wanted to, I saw that was on the agenda, and I just wanted to appreciate everything that y'all have done there on the streetscape.
Thank you, sir. She taught you well, didn't she? Yes, sir.
Mayor, and if I may interject on one
Yes, sir.
matter, if just pertaining to items on your agenda, particularly item number 10, the Shakertown Road zone change discussion. While you are certainly, Mayor, at your meeting to hear comment, you should know that the discussion that you will have later on in your meeting on this particular item involves a public hearing that has already transpired, and to the extent you are admonished from further consideration of any further public comment on that item as it relates to the decision that will be rendered and required upon you. So we have to put a fence around item number 10 to the extent that you will be required to consider the underlying record that was developed at the Planning Commission, and we'll get into a further discussion of that at that time. So to the extent any comments are made in regard to items number 10, they cannot be considered and would be unlawful for to be considered as a basis for any decision rendered by you in regards to that matter number.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Daniel Wells. I live at 313 Spring Hill Road. I was at the planning meeting. This subject was tabled due to the fact that the owner was not present. And I'm surprised that Henry would have let this happen, but I guess he did. But I am concerned about the traffic on Spring Hill Road and the Flume. Future land use management map has an extension of Middlebrook going down to this new development, which will put traffic on Spring Hill Road, and we've got children there, and it worries me. People have trouble backing out of their driveway, getting onto Spring Hill, and sometimes it's like Pikes Peak climb. The other thing that I'm worried about is the flooding. Spears Creek has been in my backyard, over the bank, into my backyard twice this year already. About 10 years ago, Earl Coffey had a big meeting on the water problems in Streamland. About 3 or 4 years ago, John Castle had another meeting on the problems of water in Streamland, and we've got a problem there, and We don't need a lot more water going into Spears Creek or holding it back. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, again, further to that point, for items that are considered discussion points to number 10 on your agenda, I think it would, I'm not sure that this meeting is the one to hear public comment in regards to that particular item. You need that, this is a matter of first impression before the commission, and in order to protect the due process of the administrative hearing that has already been had and held at the Planning Commission, you are going to be considering a record later in your agenda of which to be the basis of your decision. And I am of the understanding that there may be some, not the full board may hear that entire decision. And so in order to protect that process, I do caution comment on item number 10 on your agenda as not being appropriate or at this particular point in time.
Oh, let me try to translate what you're saying then. Are you saying that I should not allow people to come to the podium tonight to speak about number 10?
I'm saying that you cannot consider any comments in regards to number 10 in the decision that you rendered because it would be a violation of due process. So it would, for you all,
The
as
five of us.
the 5 of you, to hear public comment because there was an underlying public hearing in which public comment was garnered. This is not a second attempt to have those public comments reiterated before this body.
Mr. Dexter, I'm sure everybody else has gotten a lot of emails regarding this, which, I mean, I'm not sure how they differ, but you can tell me, but.
Right, I'm sure. So what we would do, the technical term is you would be admonished from considering any other evidence that was not properly presented in the underlying public record before the Planning Commission. So no new information can be garnered or proffered by either party. So this is not a night in which you will hear from the developer or the applicant. You will not hear from residents in regarding this matter, people either for or in opposition to, or any council representing either sides of those matters. It will be a matter for you to consider administratively. This is not a normal issue before this commission. There are we are now in a legal process where there are certain rights of parties that must be protected in order to have an above-board process and procedure.
Okay, well, let me follow you. Is there anyone at this time in our meeting who wants to speak to us about items on the agenda except for number 10? Okay, so y'all want to talk about number 10. Okay, so then how about this? Can we then go to number 10, have our discussion, let them hear what our decisions are going to be, what the possibilities are for us as a commission?
You can.
And then if they still want to have a chance to talk to us, come back to hear the public?
You could do that. We could have our discussion of item number 10. And then again, though, if they want to speak during hear the public, my comment would still be the same depending on how that conversation goes of what would be appropriate for you to hear or not hear at that time.
Okay. Well, I think we need to discuss it and for our commission, give ourselves some direction, and maybe our direction will take care of the discussion for tonight, and then we'll have this discussion with them at a later date maybe. But it just depends on what we decide to do as a, can you all hear me? It depends on what we decide to do as a commission. So why don't we go to number 10 on the agenda and start a discussion about how the commission desires to proceed with the Shakertown Road zone change.
Okay. Mayor, may I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so prior to starting number 10, I just wanted to state on the record, as a resident of an adjoining neighborhood for the next matter on the agenda, that I'm going to recuse myself to allow the legal process to be impartial. I will leave the chamber, and Ashley, please contact me when this discussion is done, and I will return.
Can I give you my sandwich order?
No.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Dexter, do we need an official change of agenda, motion and approval?
We did that.
I believe we did that at the very beginning of the meeting,
Okay,
Commissioner.
Okay. Part I missed.
No, that's okay,
Sorry.
good.
Sorry, good question.
Yep, that's right. Okay, so we're taking item number 10. We're going to discuss what the options are for our city commission as we proceed through this process.
Thank you. So I'm going to attempt to give an overview of the facts that have transpired, where we are, a brief reiteration of the legal requirements, and then pose the questions that are upon you to make to decide how to proceed tonight. We'll start by saying that the procedure for a zone map amendment is clearly outlined in KRS 100.211. And in that situation, it says that an applicant would file a completed application for a zone map amendment with the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's one of the forms that can originate. The Planning Commission thereafter has 60 days to proffer a recommendation to this body, either for or against that recommendation based on certain findings and facts and conclusions of law with the comp plan, future land use map, thanks to that record. In this instance, the developer, through its engineer, submitted a complete application on the 6th of February. And there was a hearing in February, the normal meeting Planning Commission, which a public hearing was held but not completed. And then there was a second meeting in March in which it was finalized, but no vote was taken. The 60-day deadline fell on the 7th of April, and without a formal recommendation by the Planning Commission. At that time, the developer is entitled, or the applicant rather, is entitled to have the application forwarded to you for a determination without a recommendation. Let me pause for a second. You know normally that all final decisions on zoning applications are finalized here. They're based upon a recommendation from the Planning Commission, but it's always the record is presented to you, there's a recommendation, and then you vote to either accept or reject that recommendation. And at that time, you make your decision, we prepare the ordinance, and then you have a first and second reading based upon that judgment call after the recommendation is received. That's the same process we're employing here. The only difference is you don't have a recommendation. So that's where we are. They just don't have a recommendation before you. But you do have the full record before you. By law now, you have a couple of options. And that is, first of all, you must act within 90 days of receipt of the forwarded record. And that record was sent to the city manager sometime last week, I think by midweek, certainly, of last week. So we have that date known, but you have a 90-day deadline to act, and a failure to act within that time would result in the application being approved as it is, standard as a procedural matter. These timelines are important, and they're written into the statutes so items don't become tabled repetitively, and that a property owner has a right to a determination based upon a properly and completely submitted application. So before you now, you have an underlying record that has been developed, and what has been our normal process is that you would take that record and consider it in written format, and it can be presented to you, but it's in totality before you as well. It's consisting of agenda items, the presented agenda for the meetings it was considered, the minutes from those meetings, the completed application, a staff report, and some recommended motions that were developed by counsel for the Planning Commission to assist in that discussion. It is now incumbent upon you to look at that record, make a determination, make a motion that's based upon the comprehensive plan, and then come to a conclusion, and then we would vote and go on. After you did that, we would prepare an ordinance, and you would still have your normal readings of that ordinance. So
Doesn't have to occur tonight, correct?
it does not have to occur tonight, no. You're free to have it occur tonight,
Right.
but you're not required to have it. Our goal tonight was to provide this information to you This is our first meeting since we've been presented with the full record from the Planning Commission without a recommendation. And so it's been presented to us, it is in your packet, and the review is being presented to you so you can make a determination on how we proceed. Typically, what we have done in the past, and it's our, I guess, historical basis, would be that you take the underlying record, make your own determination about what has already transpired, and formulate that into a motion for a decision, followed by ordinance preparation. In my tenure with the city, I can only recollect one time in which we have had a new hearing, and that is when the hearing was devoid of critical information to form as a basis for a zone change recommendation. So if the record fails to establish certain things, or there's not a completed application, for instance, I think that was the case. The one matter that I can remember is when there was an incomplete application that's used in support of a zone change map amendment, but the commission at that time did not feel that the completed application was enough to justify the decision. So we reopened the hearing to take the evidence necessary in order to make a proper decision. That, however, does not, those facts aren't the case in what's before you today. You have a fully completed and submitted application. You have a developed record of a public hearing, and the public was given 2 hearings in which to speak. And that is also available to you for review on live video. So that's been preserved. Should you desire to watch that in the interim, you could. So what we would look for you today is to have a decision to either, you can do one or two things. You could decide to accept the underlying record and review it within the next 2 weeks, and then make your decision, your first decision on that at your next meeting. You could conduct a new hearing if you wanted to. If you wanted to do that, we would need to give notice to all the parties, but we would have to have the record represented by the applicant, and then everyone would basically, you would wipe away the underlying record and create your new record, and make your decision based upon the new record that was developed. Those are your options on how to proceed. So acceptance of the underlying record, or you reject the record and create your own. What we would seek from you tonight is guidance on the process and the procedure on how to proceed.
As I read, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, as I read those 1 or 2 or 3 emails that I got this weekend, there's a couple of things that kept resonating with me, and one was the misinformation, the uninformation, the lack of participation by residents during the 2 meetings the planning and zoning had. And I've not looked at any tapes yet, but those 2 things kept resonating with me, along with the traffic and the water issues kept coming across to me.
In regards to the first question, I'm not aware of anyone that was not allowed to speak. Maybe that did transpire. However, the Planning Commission is the body that is statutorily required and trained to host public meetings, public hearings rather. We typically don't host hearings in this chamber. We're not set up for that. You're not trained for that. And but the Planning Commission, however, is. And so the notices that we had, at least in my review of the record, the meetings were properly noticed. The statutory notice was provided by law as necessary. Adjoining property owners were properly contacted to provide notice of the meetings, and those agendas were properly published at regularly scheduled meetings. And so there is both actual and apparent knowledge of the public hearing. Absent some fact to the contrary of that, the fact that someone either didn't speak or chose not to or didn't attend for a conflict is not a matter that would rise to the legal justification for you to have a new hearing.
And I guess the second thing that I want to toss out, again, I'm just trying to get as much information out as I can. The fact that the owner was not present at the second hearing, there was some confusion about the process. Again, I wasn't present, haven't viewed the tape, but I'm just trying to rehash all of my literary homework that I had this weekend.
An owner is not, first of all, required to be there. They can have someone else there on his or her behalf. It's my understanding from the record that the applicant's developer was there at the hearing, which is compliant with the procedural norms that would be acceptable under the legal standard. Furthermore, to the extent that there was some deviation in standard, the Planning Commission had other tools at its disposal. One, they could have voted to reject it based upon that matter. If they voted to do that, they would have been in their purview. Second, they could have scheduled a special called meeting to deal with it at a more appropriate time. Neither of those options were chosen. But I cannot speak for the Planning Commission, nor can we ask them for it, but they did not proffer a recommendation to you in the statutorily required time, and that is incumbent upon them to do so.
No, go ahead, Donna. No.
No, I'm listening as well. I mean, I'm not on P and Z, obviously. I got this record on Friday. There's a lot to it. And what I gathered, the applicant wasn't there, and, you know, the items of concern were listed in there from P and Z, which are substantial, and the traffic and and I don't know that they mentioned the water, but they did mention the traffic. That's a concern. My question was, why didn't Planning and Zoning act? But you answered, we can't ask
Well,
them
and I
that.
think the items that were noted there too, I want you to consider they're in the Planning Commission's council items of concern. Those are things that he thinks may be an issue. So until the Planning Commission says they're an issue, those are model motions done for the intent of providing for an efficient and effective meeting. They are not findings of fact. So what he does, and he does this for every application that would be for them, he has an idea of what he thinks the motion may be, and he writes those to assist members in making the actual motions. So those should not carry any weight with you, either for or against, because they are model notions, unless you're looking at something
The
in
staff items of concern. That's what it says.
Is it under the director's recommendation?
Again, I've read it. The application to me seems, maybe that's how they look. The 2 pages had really nothing on them. Attachments were attached, but there's
Sure.
nothing in the application itself. Then after it says, based on the above comments, staff would find blah, blah, blah. Then the next page, it says staff items of concern. It's on page 5, of one of these.
I want to see which document you're talking about, Commissioner.
And then it
Do you
does
see
say
that?
suggested motions at the end. It's right before the map.
Oh, yeah, okay, right, I see, so that is in the director's, the staff report.
Right.
Right, so the staff report actually is a recommendation for approval. But there are noted items of concern, which are in every application.
Right.
So those are typically dealt with the things that they perceive to be potential issues for discussion and could be crafted into a motion either for or against, however they're dealt with. Sometimes those items are also used to discuss conditions.
Okay.
But the overall suggestion of the staff report is that it be approved.
Or be dealt with during the site plan process.
Right.
Right.
Personally, we did just get this on Friday, and it's kind of like taking a pig through a python. It takes a while, and I wouldn't be ready to recommend really anything. I can't say that we don't need a new hearing. I can't say we do. I just need more time to even, consider that, think about it. That's just me. Maybe slow.
Yep, there's a lot of concerns here that concern me, and that they've been stated, traffic, water density. I would be, I'd be in the court to deny the proposed. Then I will make that motion to deny the proposed zoning map amendment.
What was the motion, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
What was the motion, I'm sorry?
To deny the proposed zoning map amendment.
Deny the request is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
And Commissioner, when you do so, you have to tie that to the comprehensive plan in a manner. So you have to have a developed motion in order to do that. So you'd have to say the basis of it. And as stated now, it would be insufficient under statutory grounds. So you would have to provide a finding of fact and tie that to the comprehensive plan as to why you were denied. So you say you have concerns over transportation and water.
And
And density.
and density.
So what you have to say is why the density is inappropriate to what standard. And so what I'm saying is I don't think you're in a position, I mean, you can do that tonight if that's your desire, but I'm not in a position to help you connect those dots. And as your motion is made tonight, it's legally insufficient. So you'd have to say the density is improper because it violates section whatever of our comprehensive code. And unless you're in a position to do that, and furthermore, it's the development plan is not in violation of current density regulations. So you would have to say some other legally binding reason as to why it would not be sufficient.
So did that die already?
Well, it
The
hasn't been
motion.
seconded. I'd let the
Okay.
mayor make that determination, but.
Before talk.
I was taking notes, I'm sorry. It died for lack of a second. I don't know what Commissioner Carter was getting ready to say or do, but
What I was going to say is, we received an email from our city you're city manager now.
I did.
That contains some interesting information that might be good to share. I don't know what you think. But
We can,
if he summarized it maybe, or.
We were trying to establish the schedule for you and help you, we were restating what he basically just said with the precise dates.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about just this development plan specifically doesn't tie into Streamland. There was some confusion for that. There would have to be additional development down the road for that to happen. And so we were clarifying some of those points. For example, out of the feeling of that it was not clear in the record necessarily, there seemed to be confusion about that. So we were trying to clarify those statements that are in the document.
which you can take public notice of because they're.
Right.
So the connection to Streamland, for instance, is not something that's on the conceptual plan and could not be obtained. Second thing, as far as traffic counts were concerned, as a matter of public notice, it was provided that there's been a significant decrease as tallied by the Kentucky Department of Transportation on Shakertown Road since the
Yes,
2168 connection has been
Right.
made. Those numbers are through traffic studies that have been done, and I don't remember the traffic count, but it was significant.
Yeah, so for the record, yeah, so some of the statements that were made was that the traffic on Shakertown Road had increased. And since 2168, we looked on the state's website, and according to the state's traffic data, the traffic count went, there was 2 points that was measured, one near Brook Cove, the other at the top of the hill near Smith. Before 2168, the traffic counts averaged about 8,000 at the top of the hill and about 6,000 at Brook Cove. And today, those numbers are, since 2168, about 6,000 at the top of the hill and about 4,000, which at the Brook Cove end, which led us to suggest that's why the Transportation Cabinet hadn't made any particular requirement of the development at all. So in essence, Shakertown Road is a state road. That is the state's ultimate call on what happens to Shakertown Road, that's not necessarily city engineering. And so when city engineering was waiving the initial traffic study until such time that the development plan came forward and we were talking about internal movements inside of that subdivision, the state, clearly the traffic count going down on Checkertown Road is why they took the position that they did initially. And so I was confirming that more so than, I was clarifying that question because it seemed to be confused as a confused issue.
Apparently, some of the drainage issues were confusing too. You referenced those. I don't know if you could.
Yeah, and so I did clarify some of those statements in that the stream going through Streamland is not the stream coming out of this subdivision. They do come together down, they're two different watersheds. The confluence of those is on Checkertown Road near Twinbrook, near the entrances to Streamland subdivision. That's what I was trying to clarify, just for the record. That seemed to be confused, and so if that makes sense, yeah.
So the only way to redo and address everyone's concerns is that within this 90-day time period, we can vote we can vote the materials from the Planning and Zoning Commission up or down. And then the other option is the commission has to decide to have an altogether new hearing and start from scratch.
And in my opinion, the only reason you would have a new hearing is if you felt like the record was devoid of critical information to make a sufficient and legally justifiable decision.
And so our goal tonight specifically was to explain the schedule, explain that we did get it last week, the 7th or the 9th, depending on when the email was received. From my memory, I don't remember which day. We have 90 days from then. Then what do you want it to look like? And so we anticipated you needing at least a couple of weeks with the record to even consider whether or not you felt the record was sufficient. We wanted to confirm that was your all's thoughts on what you could see, correct? So
Yeah.
we weren't necessarily asking for any type of decision, although you're free to make
Right.
one when you want. But we were just trying to present the information to you and give you a chance to consider it and consider the path forward. That's purely it.
And the difficulty in waiting past tonight to decide at least the process you're going to employ is, again, because this is not a normal process for you.
Yep.
So you are in a sense now judge and jury, meaning just like you would receive jury instructions, you are not entitled or allowed to have conversations outside of this hearing or this body in regards. So you can solicit no public input. You would have to reject attempts to contact you. So it puts you in a very difficult position outside of determining process if you don't make that decision tonight on how you're going to proceed. I will say this, in the event that you decide to accept the public record and move towards having this a full discussion at your next meeting, if you determine within the next 2 weeks that the record is insufficient to be a basis for your decision, you could raise it then or vote no on any potential motion because of that, which is what I would probably encourage you to do, so we have a set and a finite manner in which to proceed that is of first impression tonight.
His motion to deny failed because of a lack of a second. But if someone was to make a motion to say we wanted to approve this and it got a second, then we'd have to come up with some basis for which we approve this as well?
Right. So, I mean, in general terms, you would say, and just by a quick review of the staff report that was submitted at the Planning Commission, you would say something to the effect of, I move to approve the zone map application as it is in compliance with the future land use map, meets the comprehensive goal of providing additional housing within the municipal boundaries with existing utilities, and the presented conceptual plan does not violate the density requirements. I mean, it has to be something like that to withstand legal objection. And so if you do that, so you say, think compliance with the comp plan and the flume and why, and then that's a substantial basis for the motion.
We provided you the Attorney Smith for Planning and Zoning. The purpose of us putting those in your packet is because those were on the record that he presented the Planning and Zoning Commission and to both approve or deny either one of those. So my suggestion would be to tailor your motions around either those two justification statements or come up with your own, right?
And a motion to approve anytime, does the commission have the authority, the power to put some stipulations, some restrictions on the developer?
If there was an appropriate condition to make, then you could make that condition, but it would have to be within your purview to do so, so it would be very fact-specific as to whether it was appropriate for you to do so or not. Meaning, if you say you wanted to condition the property to be restricted to density in some regard, well, the plan that's in front of you would have to be in violation of that. So what's been proposed is not a violation of density. However, if it was a violation of density, then you could say, we'll allow it if you pull the density back. And these are state connections on a state road, so we really don't have authority as a city to determine where those connections are. So sometimes on city streets we do, and we would make certain conditions there. And anything affecting drainage is really done on the site plan review process, so that wouldn't be appropriate here. The transportation would not be appropriate here. Density wouldn't be either. So unless there was some other issue as far as the condition is concerned, then it wouldn't be appropriate. But if there was a reasonable condition that wasn't properly addressed in the conceptual plan, then yes.
So what you were telling us earlier about giving us more time to study it, a couple weeks to study it, and then if in that time we decide we would prefer a new hearing, is that can I make that motion?
You sure can. That would be a hearing, or that would be a motion you would have in 2 weeks. You'd still be within your time frame, yes.
Because the only way to hear from everyone is to have a new hearing, correct?
Excuse me?
If we wanted to hear from everybody, since they're not in the record, and hear what they have to say and put that as part of a recommendation, you would have to have a new hearing, correct?
You would have to have another hearing to hear additional public comment.
Additional public comment.
Yes.
Okay.
But I will say we have never done that just for the public. The public has had 2 chances for a public hearing by the Planning Commission. It's really not your job or duty to do that. It's most common that you would accept the record as it has been developed and then use that as a basis of your decision, unless there was something incomplete, inaccurate, or unfulfilled that you need additional comment. We've never had a additional public hearing just to hear more comment.
But how could we determine, quote unquote, legally that citizens of Danville and Boyle County, not just in Streamland, but those who appeared at that meeting who wanted to have their voice heard, and they were not given that opportunity? How would we ever determine that?
Well, if that did occur, then a citizen would have redress against the Planning Commission for it, frankly, if they were aggrieved by it. So in theory, and that would be a tough legal standard to overcome because there were 2 opportunities to be heard as opposed to just one. And the law in this area says that if you're provided notice, you have an opportunity to speak. And we've not, at least the record that I've reviewed doesn't show that anyone was asked to speak and then denied the opportunity. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm just saying what the record does not substantiate any type of claim like that. And without that, in order to withstand that type of test, you would have to say that you were locked out of the meeting. They told you you weren't allowed to speak for some illegal reason and something of that nature. But we don't have any evidence of that in the record here.
Young man, I see your hand, but I'm not authorized to let you speak at this time.
I'd like to make a motion then, due to the complexity of the issue and the time constraint that we just got it on Friday. I would like to make a motion that we allow 2 weeks for the commission to gather any information or study the record and do whatever they need to do in that regard. And if along the way they determine that a new hearing is warranted, we will do that at that time, I guess, in the 2 weeks' time. Awkward, but.
So you're not accepting or rejecting the record at this time?
Nope.
Okay. So we will do that with the admonishment. I mean, if that motion is approved, then the admonishment will be for the protection of due process that you may only consider the record that has been prepared before you, submitted in your packet. You will be chastised to refrain from any public or private discussion of this matter amongst yourselves and amongst any public person in regards to this matter. So that means emails regarding this matter, text regarding this matter, conversations in Kroger you will have to walk away from in order to protect the due process hearing of rights of all parties involved, which is why it's a difficult process.
I understand. I don't feel like I'm educated enough to make any decision right now, up or down or
I understand.
sideways.
I'm just being clear of what your roles and
understand that as
responsibilities
well.
are.
I know you're
Yeah.
protecting us.
I don't think we feel like we were part of the facts of finding, because it came to us kind of late. Didn't have the same opportunity planning and zoning did. And yeah, there's some things that concern us, and I don't know how to deal with that. And one of them I did not state was that intersection going into the neighborhood. So I don't know how to deal with this.
Well, you deal with those amongst yourselves. Again, we're not trying to deal with the issues. We're just trying to determine the process. So that is a very fair conversation to have once we determine the process that we will employ. So if you feel like the record, and this is what we do every zone change, so this is no different than anything we've ever done before, you just don't have a recommendation. The Planning Commission just didn't vote on it. But it's no different from any other zone change that you are in the habit of hearing on a regular basis. You just don't have their final vote. You have the record, and you have the recommendation of staff, and you have the minutes and agendas from the meetings, which is what you always have, right? And it's always been acceptable in every other situation. What we're just asking you to do is just to decide now if you're going to accept it and move forward for discussion next time. And our recommendation was if you do that and you get to that hearing and then you determine it's insufficient, make a motion either to deny it or to have a public hearing at that time, which will then, protect the process that we're trying to employ.
Before I carry Commissioner Cottle's motion, would you very succinctly walk us through the process? We decide the 1st of May we're going to have a hearing. Walk us through the process about what that looks like.
A hearing?
Yes, sir, the time frame.
So you have to, if you decided you were going to accept the underlying record, that would mean at your next meeting, you would have a discussion of the substantive issues, like transportation, like drainage, whatever you want to discuss. And then you would make a decision at that time on if you were going to have a motion for or against the map amendment. Once you did that, we would create an ordinance that substantiated it, and then which you'd have 2 readings of. So if you accept the record, you would have a next meeting where you discuss the issues, followed by 2 more meetings when you had a first and second reading of an ordinance, either in approval or denial, okay? So that would be a 6-week process. If you decided in 2 weeks that you wanted to have a public hearing, then we would establish a public hearing, we would provide notice of it, and we would scrap the record that had been proposed. The developer would have to come back, make a full presentation like you've never heard it before, and then any public input could be had at that time. Staff would be asked to then fill the role of what the Planning Commission staff would typically do, and that would be to provide recommendations and guidance to you based upon compliance with the comprehensive plan, future land use map, and all other normal issues. So at that time, then you'd have a hearing, and at the hearing, then you'd have to make the same motion that you would make if you accept the record, just like we always do. We are going to proceed with this, or we're not, for reasons tied in the comp plan, and have 2 readings of that ordinance.
But at the new hearing, anyone and everyone who wants to speak to the commission will have the opportunity to do that.
If it's a public hearing,
Yes.
then anyone who wishes to speak on that matter within the confines of the meeting would have opportunity to speak.
Because the third thing I was going to say about all my emails is that one of my summations is that people were contacting me because they didn't feel like they had the opportunity to be heard at that meeting. And I don't know for what reason, but that's the feel I got from people.
One other thing of note, though, to the extent someone did speak at a previous meeting, then their comments could not be considered going forward. So anyone who has spoken would have to speak again to have their
Sure, I
record
understand that.
comments.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Stephen. If I withdrew my motion and just said, we're going to take the 2 weeks to study it and make a determination about the findings, and, really, it's the same motion.
Yeah, I mean, I
It's
think
just putting it off 2 weeks, I guess.
right. The preferred motion, I think, would be that you accept the record to have a discussion at the next meeting. And then
Okay.
at that meeting, if you feel it's insufficient after you review,
Okay.
say at the beginning, I don't think the record is sufficient, and I think we need to have a public hearing.
Okay, that's, I think, what I meant to do. But
I think that's what you're
Okay.
saying. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Sears couldn't reject it, but you have to accept it in the next 2 weeks, reject it if we wanted to.
Right, this is just talking about the
Right.
record.
Right,
This
just
is
the
saying
record,
we are going
accepting
to
it into-
accept the record that has been established
Right.
as the basis of your future decision. You're not saying you're for it or against it.
Right.
You're just saying you accept the record that's been established as the basis of what we'll use to make your decision going forward. And in 2 weeks, you'll have a substantive discussion about the issues, and then decide either for or against, or say that the record is devoid of enough information to make a conscious decision and you need a public hearing.
Okay, I withdraw my motion.
Yeah.
We don't have that anywhere going. You withdraw your motion? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Somebody else want to make one? I move then that at the next meeting in 2 weeks, after giving us time to consider the findings, that we take up the matter of approval or non-approval or having a hearing at that time.
3 options.
If we're on the same page, feel free to tell me. if
No,
we're
no,
not.
no, I'm sure, yeah.
I
that's
think
just-
this is what you're saying. If it's not, tell me I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
I think you're saying your motion is to accept the record, moving
Oh,
forward to have a
I didn't say
substantive
that part,
discussion
yes.
at your next
Yeah.
regularly scheduled meeting.
What Stephen said.
Okay. So the motion for the record is that the planning and zoning record be accepted as the basis of the commission's procedure moving forward, to be considered at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners.
And that's not approving the record, that's accepting it for study.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Correct. All right.
All right.
Now, if I want to go back to his motion and make a motion to not accept the record, I got to give some justification for it?
Are you talking about the record or the zone change?
No, the zone change, the whole thing. His motion was to do with the whole thing.
Yeah, you asked me to refer the
Yeah.
things I don't know about, so I couldn't refer to them.
Right.
Yeah.
You second Commissioner Cottle's motion? Is there a second to Commissioner Cottle's motion? There's not a second to his motion, so I can't move on it, right? Somebody out there want to second it?
Yeah.
You second it? Well, his motion is just simply to put it off for 2 weeks. Come back and say we voted up, we voted down, now we have another hearing. That's all his motion does, theoretically.
Is it
The
same?
motion, the motion accepts the record and saying, this is what transpired, and we're going to use it as the basis of our decision going forward.
Right.
Hypothetically, if you find it insufficient, then in 2 weeks, you could say, I move for a new hearing because the record is insufficient. But you would have to detail for legally sustainable reasons why it's insufficient. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh.
You're not in a position to do that tonight.
Wait, no, right? I'll wait, I feel like we're in a, I don't know which way to go. Okay, it's been properly moved by Commissioner Cottle that we accept the record without voting it up or voting it down, but to study it, and then in the next meeting, which is the 28th of April, the commission will have another discussion about accepting or rejecting the.
Not entirely. The motion that was made was that you accept the record for discussion at the next meeting.
Yes,
And at that time,
yes,
we plan on having a substantial conversation on this matter.
yes.
It would be appropriate if you felt the record was insufficient, someone could then move for a new hearing then. But that is not tied to this motion.
No,
You
no,
either
I
need to
know.
accept or reject the record
Yeah.
tonight.
But we're saying the same thing. I'm trying to say it so these people out here can understand it. Excuse me, wait. 2 weeks from now, the commission can vote to approve the zone change or to deny it,
Correct.
or we could vote to have a public hearing.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so we're saying the same thing.
I'll
And-
second his motion.
Okay.
And that's the purpose of tonight's
Right.
discussion.
Yes, I-
Because we understand, it's we understood that. We weren't trying to make it unnecessarily complex.
Well, I mean, yeah.
But this, the only step is, we would normally move next meeting's discussion to more clearly on this agenda. But tonight, because there was a lot of pressure, we did get it last week. The deadline was the beginning of last week. That passed, and so we wanted to make sure we had the discussion as quickly as possible to make it as flexible as possible. So we understand that it may feel rushed, but at the end of the day, it's not, we're not rushing it. We want to make sure that you all are in command of the process as quickly as possible, which you're exercising that command by telling us what to do with it.
That's what I'm saying. I don't
Yeah.
want to second it and say I'm accepting this.
No.
I'm not.
Well, there's nothing
It's
here to
just-
accept but the record. This is the facts of what's transpired.
Right.
So, and no recommendation was made. So
Right.
you're just merely saying that the record is accepted tonight, and you will study it for a decision to be made at the next meeting. And that decision could be a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or a motion to have a new hearing.
Okay.
Correct.
Properly moved in second. We've had enough discussion. All those in favor of,
Accepting the record for
Accepting his record?
consideration at your next meeting.
yes.
Yeah.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Could we have not tabled it? And it would be the same
mean,
thing?
No, it's not the same thing.
Okay.
No, it's
okay.
not.
I'm not confusing it. But I'm not voting on it.
It-
Well, I'm going to vote yes to, that we agree to come back 2 weeks later.
Right.
That's all we're doing, really.
And I will be the lone nay.
All right. So motion carries.
So just so you know, the record that has been submitted is the official record. I would encourage you to read it. If you should watch the actual meeting itself, so you're familiar with what has transpired. And so you know if there you would see if someone attempted to speak and was denied due process, you would be able to see it with your eyes. You are, again, admonished from considering things that are not in the record, which is what we're trying to protect the process for all parties involved. It is still something that you should refrain from discussion amongst members of the public or yourselves outside of this process.
And for the sake of knowledge, and I'm trying to use the word record one time. For the sake of knowledge, the official record is the application of the developer, the zone change, and so it's in my memo in the opening paragraph. The application of the developer, the zone change staff report that was provided, the February 26th minutes, the March 26th agenda and packet, which includes the P and Z council justifications, and then also the March 26th minutes. That's the entirety of the record, plus the online videos that was actually taken during the meeting. Okay?
That's our homework for study. to use 2 weeks to
Right.
make a decision.
So at your next meeting, you should be prepared to either vote one of three ways: make a motion to approve the zone change, deny the zone change, or to have a new public hearing because the record is devoid of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
We won't just have another public hearing if there aren't legally sufficient reasons to justify it, is my point.
We just don't like, say that out loud. We've had two people who've had their hands up consistently, and I bet they want to talk about the same issue. You're going to advise me not to call them,
I'm going to
right?
advise you not to do that.
All right. Hopefully you'll get it. Well. I feel like I can't even encourage you all to communicate with me during the next 2 weeks. Because I'm afraid if you communicate with me, I'm sorry, I'm human. I'm going to be concerned about what you're concerned about. So.
This is the tough part of your job in that you are entering a quasi-administrative proceeding here.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you have a different responsibility and you owe it to the process not to hear from either side.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned hearing from, potentially people in the neighborhood, but this equally applies to developer or applicant or anyone else voting in, or who might be in favor of it as well.
We better hurry up and hire us a planning and zoning director, that's for sure, man. Well, okay, let's close this discussion, this debate. Ma'am, I see you over there, but I'm gonna take side on my legal advisor's side over there and not call on you.
How does the public get a complete copy of what the commission was given, so we know what we can talk about?
Oh, well, he can answer that.
So we know how to address the issues?
Yes, ma'am.
The record would be something that an open records request to the Planning Commission would be able to provide to you.
You can't just give us a copy of what the commission?
Not without an open records request, ma'am, no.
Mayor, can I talk about something administratively?
Well, not at this, let me do this. To get the commission out of the hot seat, I'm going to direct you all the way, if questions or concerns, to contact the city manager or the city attorney. You've heard what our assignment is. Now, I'm going to give you all an assignment that you all contact those two folks for clarity. Because I'm afraid if I answer somebody, I'm going to say something wrong.
And Mayor, for clarity, that would be the city manager. It would not be me. I'm
Okay.
here to, I will not return phone calls or emails regarding this matter because my role is here to protect due process and keep you in the position of maintaining integrity of this chamber. That's my sole purpose in being here and advocating for process.
And publicly, I have to say I respect you because you do a good job of that. Doesn't mean I have to agree with him, but I do respect his.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's go on then. Want to get Commissioner Holland to come back in?
Yes.
She had her break. She didn't get another break tonight, right?
Appreciate you.
Let's call our meeting back to order. The next item of agenda is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Oh, man.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the last three meetings, 3/20/25, a special call meeting, 3/24/25, a regular meeting, and 3/27/25, a special call meeting.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions, corrections, additions, or deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, likewise, motion carries. Next item is a banner request from Center College. You've all had information in your packet about it. These are Center College banners for the light poles, saying congratulations to the Center College graduates of 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you all. Any questions about? They look pretty good to me. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Those opposed, motion carries. You want to speak about the Share Your Strength 5K, right, Mr. Cooper? You're next. You want to come up?
Jeff?
I'm Jeff Cooper, and the 5K is to help my wife with her medical and therapy expenses. 2.5 years ago, she became paralyzed from a cyst on her neck and from her shoulders down. She was paralyzed and couldn't move anything, and through therapies, she's coming back from that. May 10th is the 5K at Millennium Park at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's to support my wife, Jan Sheffield. And,
What's the entry fee on it, Jeff?
pardon?
What's the entry fee on that?
$30, and then the day of it is $35. And it's a run, walk, and then out-of-staters or out-of-town can do a virtual one also. This is our second year doing it, and I'm asking to hang the banner on the railing outside of
Yes, sir.
the city hall.
Okay. Chair needs to have a motion to approve the banner for the Share Your Strength 5K coming up Saturday, May the 10th.
So moved.
Yep. Second?
Thank you all. Any other questions or comments?
Jeff, what happened to her? Is that tied to anything that is commonplace with other people, or?
We don't know what happened.
Okay.
It's a blood bacteria that was in her from something. There's all kinds of guesses of what it could be from. And it chose to grow in an empty spot in her spine and expand, and it put pressure on her spine, and voila, it's, so. But we're coming back from it, and
She's tough.
we're blessed that she's still with us.
Yes, sir. That's right. And thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item is a banner request in regards to Earth Day 2025. Is there a motion to approve the hanging of a banner for Earth Day?
So moved.
Thank you
I'll
both.
be the second.
All right. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, we don't have anybody here representing, but what I do know is they have well over 20 vendors to be added to what's going on as the farmer's market as well. So it's going to be a very festive time down at Constitution Square that morning.
All right, thank you, sir. Do we have a motion on that one?
Yeah,
We did?
did.
No second?
and a second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we have a proclamation in honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and Commissioner Peak's going to read that for us.
Whereas sexual abuse, assault, and harassment affect individuals of every background, and whereas over 53% of women and 29% of men have experienced sexual violence, and whereas most women and men of all sexual identities who have experienced sexual violence from someone they know, from someone they knew, and whereas we must address this by promoting education around content, healthy communication, and bystander intervention. And whereas equipping individuals and communities with these tools, we can help prevent violence before it starts. And whereas this year's theme is Together We Act, United We Change, stresses the importance of amplifying the voices of survivors. And whereas everyone in our communities deserve to live in a safe and supportive environment where they are treated with respect. Now therefore be it resolved that Mayor James J.H. Atkins and the City Commissioners of the City of Danville on this 14th day of April 2025 recognize April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and urge all citizens to participate in events supporting the effort.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion?
I move we approve that proclamation into the record.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you all. Next item is a Streetscape Award presentation. Mr. Coffey and Mr. Morgan are gonna.
Go ahead. Now go ahead. I was gonna let Earl handle this one because he went to the event, so I'm gonna hand it over to him. I'll see him get the picture.
Well, it was the ACEC award, which was the second time the city actually has won the award, which is essentially the engineering community in Kentucky. It's an engineering excellence award for its both implementation and design. It's the second time the city had won it that I'm aware of. The other time was at the water plant. And so we were honored to go represent the city and be able to accept that in Lexington a couple of weeks ago. And the award, Josh has the award. Yeah, if y'all want to take pictures, we can do that. It's whatever you all want to do.
Was there cash involved?
No cash involved.
He didn't bring it back to the city.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
No pictures.
That's totally fine with me.
Aw. There you go.
Yeah.
It's quite an honor, and Friday, we'll be in Lexington. The Kentucky Association of Landscape Architects are also making an award this Friday at lunch, and so we'll be going to Lexington to accept that award as well. So it's actually won 2 significant Kentucky awards.
Does that involve a free meal as well?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it's at their conference, so I'm not sure.
If so, Kevin's schedule just opened up.
I'm ready now.
Well, again, something we ought to be proud of, but again, I always say, thank staff. You guys did all the work, did all the planning, and, we talk about things, but you all put them into action. And the streetscape, I always tell my folks, is about 97% finished. Every day we find out something new that needs to be done. That's a part of it, but we're okay, so congratulations.
I'd say thank you to the downtown businesses for living through it.
Yes.
Yes, sir, that's right.
I'd like to thank Josh and Melanie for living through it too. In the eye of a storm.
They got all the positive comments. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I bet.
I stay off of Facebook, so I don't hear any of the negative comments. So.
Okay, let's go. Next item on the agenda is have our city manager's report. So he just did it, right?
Nope.
Oh, what, I'm sorry, did I miss the zone change? Wow, oh, wow. I stand corrected. I skipped 2 zone changes. Well, thought we just had one, right?
However you want to do it.
Okay. Zone change recommendation for, you want to read the,
There's no ordinance.
There's
yet.
no
This
ordinance?
is- No, this is just the recommendation for, and then we'll have a reading at the next meeting if you guys approve it. So in your packet, you have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission for 784 South 4th Street. This is to change the zone for 0.155 acres from two-family residential to highway business. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to approve the recommendation, or to approve the amendment, because it's consistent with the flume, it's consistent with the adopted goals and objectives, it's consistent with development review provisions, and is justified by the applicant's tender justifications and staff analysis.
They would say all of that on this one, right?
Mayor, in all fairness, they said the last one contained the same matter that's in this record. And this is why, when we changed the agenda around, we didn't get the advantage of you having these two first. But the record is identical in both instances. And so what we had hoped to do is you would see be reminded of the typical information you receive that is the basis of the decision going forward. That you're doing here no differently than the previous one. It's just there was extreme heat and pressure of opposition to that. But the process is the same. It's no different. It's the same record. And all you did was accept the record to be the basis of your decision, which is what you do every time. It just felt differently because there were 100 people here.
Well, no
And you didn't have
recommendation.
this letter.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, you didn't have the recommendation. But for instance, you know, when you always have concerns, whether it's
That's right.
in any zone change.
That's right.
Transportation, whatever. And they're valid things to discuss, but the record is always the same. We were just trying to get you to acknowledge that.
I'm just glad I acknowledged my emails this weekend. Okay,
I move that we approve the P and Z's recommendation for the zone change at 784 South Fourth.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. I don't feel the same.
Seems like we crossed this bridge before. Didn't we do a zone change in that property some years ago?
You did on adjoining property where
Okay.
there's a car dealership or car something.
Parking lot.
Yeah, dealership that's
Yeah.
there.
Used cars.
Yes. It's that really skinny, high-pitched lot on 4th Street,
Is that why you're here?
next to
That's why
Valvoline.
she's
Is
here.
that why you're here? I was say, get on up there then. Oh, no, go on. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, likewise, motion carries.
We'll have the ordinance ready for your review at the next meeting.
Zone change recommendation is 714 Houstonville Road.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. This is a zone change recommendation from Planning and Zoning for 714 Houstonville Road. This is to rezone 0.22 acres located at 714 Houstonville Road from two-family residential to highway business. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously, if I can speak properly,
Yes, yes.
to approve this recommendation because it's consistent with the flume, consistent with adopted goals and objectives, and is consistent with development review provisions.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion?
I'll move to accept the zone change recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank both of you. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next item on my agenda.
Mayor, if I can take one more opportunity, I want to say in the style of those last two motions, they were both based upon two things: the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. As you review the record of item number 10, you need to read it for compliance with those two matters. Does it comply with the future land use map? That's question one. Question two, does it comply with the goals and objectives stated in the comp plan? Your motion has to be based on those two things. That is the source of the motion. And if the source, if you can't answer that question in the record, then you have a public hearing. But if you can answer the question based upon the record, there is no viable reason to have a public hearing. Those are the two questions. Does it match the future land use map? And does it match the goals and objectives in the comp plan? That has to be the basis of it. You can't deviate from it.
Since you got a good discussion going there, I didn't have a chance to comment, but that property looks like a challenge for both engineering and the police department being on a hill. I guess you guys have done your due diligence for entrance there,
What property? Which item?
the one we just did. Yeah.
Well,
Shaker Town
Stephen,
Road?
it's a similar conversation to the one we had earlier of this is a state road. They'll be required to ask for an encroachment permit from the state to add any entrances on to Fourth Street. So they'll have that process, but that's a process that happens later when they have more knowledge about what is actually going to go on the property.
Okay.
Which is, again, a good review for us. It's the same thing. Those types of issues are not done at zone change levels. Those are done at development plan levels. And so a lot of this is acknowledgement of the proper process and when certain items are addressed. Stormwater, for instance, development plan issue.
Okay, let's go on then. Next on my item, on my agenda is item number 10, Shakertown Road zone change discussion. Want to do that again? Oh, I'm sorry. All right, Earl, city manager's report.
Thank you. My effort on the last item that we just went through again was trying to keep that as simple as I could for tonight, so I apologize if my memo was insufficient. But we arrived at the point where we felt like that made sense. So we appreciate the conversation and talking about it. A couple of issues that we want to make sure we follow up on the city manager report. We are dealing with the cemetery regulations. There is a gentleman that has a P&Z complaint. We are in communication with him. We are trying to reconcile that. It's on Cloverdale and Kerrigan. Unfortunately, there again, there is a complaint, but we can't find anything out of compliance per se. And so we're working through that, and we had a meeting scheduled with the gentleman last week, and it was a no-show, and so we'll follow up with phone calls and whatnot and make sure that we give our effort to help create understanding. And, you know, it may simply be that a building is not liked. That doesn't mean it's not correct.
Yeah.
And certainly, we want to respect their opinion on that. We did last week, the first part of the week, we were dealing with Harrodsburg. We were trying, as a utility, Marshall can speak to that, but we were trying to support the water supply into some of our existing customers, North Mercer Water District, Lake Village Water Association. There was a scenario about in 2005 where the city of Harrodsburg did receive water from Danville. They did it accidentally, and we had never evaluated nor studied whether or not we could get them water. So we went through a process where we were trying to communicate outwardly. There was only one or two people that actually remembered when that happened, that it happened. And so we do feel like that there's a potential solution for Harrodsburg down the road in the same way that Springfield has supplied Pierreville water before, and we've supplied some into Springfield now full-time. Those interconnections are important, and we will study the situation and see what water can go in multiple ways there, specifically all the way to Harrodsburg. They're not directly connected to us. It would have to pass through Lake Village. And so we just want to talk about that for a second, so you know that we were trying to support our neighbor. We didn't leave them in the lurch. We were supporting our water customers that were attached to us in the best way we could. Code enforcement, we are adding and still improving communication on that. Chief and I have had emails this afternoon, and so we certainly would appreciate the code enforcement issues. As we try to improve those, continue to send those directly to me and communicate, and I'll get those to the chief and let him distribute that down through the chain of command properly. And that way we can follow up together on those issues. And we certainly appreciate his attention and the police department's attention and code enforcement's attention on all those issues as they're circling through. For a few dates, the commission meeting tonight, the 15th, is the next Doing Business in Danville program. It will be at CenterWorks at 5:30. Thursday is a budget meeting. It's community agencies presentations. Remember that. There's a chamber golf scramble on the 18th. City Hall is closed on the 18th for Good Friday. The Sunday is the Easter holiday. City Hall is closed. The 26th is Earth Day, and it is having its summer kickoff downtown. The 28th then is the next commission meeting. The other thing we would like to point out immediately just for this meeting is that We have had quite a bit of work going on with the downtown master plan. We spent some days recently in Louisville, some time in Louisville, looking at a couple of centers to help us add definition to the proposed town center concept, so that we can present that to you guys as an idea. If that's something you want to pursue down the road, then hopefully we can add enough definition to that to give you confidence in looking at that and trying to evaluate. And it may include a field trip for you guys as well as we go through that process of definition. We are trying to schedule some visits to some hotels with Center College, who also hasn't spoken up with an interest in how that looks, and certainly we're trying to communicate directly with them on that issue, as well as we're trying to develop concepts related to the residential development downtown and expansion, and really seeing what that could look like down the road. So we're working on all those categories. It is time consuming. We appreciate Melanie helping us on those things. Tower Hill is the painting work is reactivated. If you drove by there today, you should see employees out there of the painting company working. And then that's all I have for tonight's meeting. I know it's already been a little bit of time, so would defer to any questions you have.
Earl, can I just add that
You sure can.
The agency presentation schedule starts at 8 on Thursday. It's not our normal 9 o'clock start time. It's moved up to 8.
Anything new on the Parks Agreement updates?
No, we have to circle back with the county and with those partners, and so we're actively working on that, yeah. We did have a tournament this weekend with Parks and Rec, in spite of the rain that we got, and so those guys have been heavily involved. We appreciate Tommy's work out there. We know that can be stressful at times, and so we appreciate it, and the public at large for being patient through the process of getting fields ready and all those things, so.
Earl, on 2168
Yep.
intersection with 127, I thought we were going to get that lit up. It's still quite dark out there. Is that lit up yet? or-
We can follow up on that. Have you heard anything?
Aren't there
from-
poles out there already?
Yeah, I can't remember what the outcome of that was, but
Okay.
we'll follow
I didn't know
up
if that
on
was us or the state.
Well, it's a state, but we can follow up on it and make the request.
Okay,
We had done that, and I just don't remember what the outcome was.
okay. Thank you.
Is that all for our city manager? Can we come to the second, to the public tonight? Folks can talk to us about things that are not on our agenda. Mr. Chandler, you want to? Is there something for us to continue to consider? Any other here to public? If not, we'll go right on to city commission comments. Nobody has any tonight, right?
I was going to mention the event that you and I were at on, what was that, Saturday? The Literacy Bell celebration. Young people who read their first book gathered. They got to sign their name in the book with a quill pen and then ring the bell at the schoolhouse, and then got some, a goodie bag to take. But that's really neat because, that's opens up a whole new world.
And it's 40 or 41?
There was 27 that were there, and I think there was more than, 40-something that had done it.
So good number. Yeah. Other commissioners?
I don't know if Earl mentioned the Easter egg hunt in Millennium is Saturday. Bring out the kids and grandkids, so.
Well, you gotta be 12 and under, right?
Oh,
Kevin can.
It's like noon or 12:45 or something.
Friday's Trails Alliance meeting will be meeting at Woven Wire. Josh is going to tell everybody at the committee what they've got going with that, so it's looking really good. Finishing Woven Wire, possibly an addition.
I've got sexual and child abuse prevention activity for the community tomorrow at 5 o'clock at Michael Smith Park. Well, it's at 4:30 to 7. So sexual and child abuse prevention activity at Michael Smith Park. And we're going to present the proclamation that was read tonight to the folks who are sponsoring it. Okay, let's move along then. Anything else? Okay, the next item is payment of the bills. Chair will entertain a motion to pay the bills as presented.
I move. No, go ahead. No. Ladies first. Ladies first.
Yeah.
Brains before beauty.
Make a motion to approve the bills in the amount of $1,843,866.72 as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Any questions, additions, or deletions?
I have a question. Hub International Midwest, it says it's the benefits consulting for every month. Is that a different name of a company?
That's Randy, it's our health insurance consultant.
Oh, that is our health insurance consultant. I thought that was Jonathan. I'm sure it's Jonathan. Yeah.
No, that is, that's who does our, if I'm not mistaken, that is who performs our, they review our salary compensation for us, and they provide us a discount essentially to break that over a full period of time rather than doing just individual contract basis, one-time adjustments. Let me make sure I'm not incorrect. Oh, nope, I'm incorrect. That's the Hannah Group. Hold on just one second.
You can get to me later. I just want to, I just follow up with that.
with you on that.
That's
yeah.
fine.
I'll get an email out in the morning.
That's the
I think
mayor's
that's
name.
the health insurance
That's the mayor.
consultant. I think they've got like a 50-something
It may just be a
$1,000.
different name. You know, it
Correct,
may just be a
right.
different name. And then the other one was the Kenneth Lee mowing. Is that something we bid out for Public Works?
Kenneth Lee Mowing.
Yeah. It says
So
mowing
that is
contract.
that is our new, Lee Mowing is our new vendor for one of our mowing contracts. If you remember, we split that into 3 separate contracts. And they, I believe, are responsible for General City Hall. They're either General
Yes,
City
that's
Hall
correct.
or the parks.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
general,
that's
general
good.
properties. And they were under Lee Farms when we awarded that
Okay,
contract.
'cause I
That's why
was like,
it
who's
looks
Kenneth Lee?
different
But
to you.
then I should have noticed the Lee Farms. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of paying the bills, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, likewise, motion carries. Thank you all. Mr. Carey, utilities update. He's been waiting patiently, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's your insurance, correct. So Randy just answered my question. That was Peel and Hollins,
Okay,
right? They changed their name to Hub so
okay.
I
was
thought that's what it
wondering.
was.
Yeah,
yes.
I didn't know. I was like, there's too many names.
So they have an annual contract that's about $50,000. Yep.
Okay, I wanted to do just a brief utilities update, just focus mainly on projects. Just kind of cut through a lot of the extra details for utilities and just kind of give you a brief update in the remaining fiscal year and next fiscal year on some major projects that we got going on. I showed this map some time ago, but I think it's kind of hard to envision some of our utilities projects without kind of a general understanding of where we are on a map regionally. So you've heard me talk, about the Spears Creek Pump Station that we're in the process of wrapping up right now. You've heard me talk about the Spears Creek Force Main, which is a future project along the corridor that will help with the efficiency of the Spears Creek Pump Station. And I'll talk about, majority of these projects during the presentation just briefly. But the Clarks Run Phase 2 sewer, HDR, Rich Smith with HDR is here in the commission meeting, and he's going to give a brief presentation on that project, but also the environmental discussion as well. We plan to have a public meeting. I think we're shooting for the 24th. We don't have a set time yet, but we're going to send out an advertisement, which is a requirement, probably tomorrow for that. You got your wastewater treatment plant phase 1, which we've closed out, and then you got your wastewater treatment plant phase 2, which is these two are kind of hand in hand as far as funding availability. These are funds that we don't have just yet, but these are two big ticket items, and I'll talk about those two. The Balls Branch Sewer Project. So I wanted to kind of give just kind of a synopsis geographically of where some of the projects were. This is a phase 3 water line project that we've recently completed. That's the connection all the way to Springfield. So we're kind of spread out, but I just wanted to kind of provide a map to give a little bit of detail as far as the locations of some of the projects that we're talking about. Right now, if you all remember, we've recently awarded the Balls Branch Sewer North Phase 1 through 3. I've reached out to Conhurst Construction. They're out of Olive Hill, which is up in the Ashland area. And they've provided some of their required information. I think they provided that last Friday. So I've got that under review right now, and we'll meet with them, get a notice to proceed, likely next week, hopefully, and then we'll develop a schedule. So starting from that point on, I'll be able to provide a little better detail on schedule as far as implementation and some of the work that's going to be done out there. Then you got the Spears Creek Pump Station improvements, the $2.5 million project that we're wrapping up right now, and that's actually related to the next agenda item, but we'll touch on that in just a second. This is the county ARPA project that we've discussed at points in recent past, but these are the sewer improvements to Junction City and Perryville. $2.8 million total. We've got 5 separate pump stations that we're improving. We're actually going to replace in total one of those pump stations on Noblick Road, improving motor control components, different electrical components, pump capacities, addressing bypasses, and addressing some of the screening and flow metering issues and aeration issues. Not really issues, but items that need to be updated and modified to bring them into more direct regulatory compliance moving forward. That wastewater plant in Perryville, if y'all are very familiar with it, it sits on US 68 on the north side of Perryville there. It actually functions very well for the amount of inflow that comes into it. We really haven't had a lot of problems out of it over time, but we do have some regulatory items that have come up recently that we want to make sure that we're in compliance with in the future. So that's one of the primary drivers of some of that funding out of that $2.8 million for some of that work. And a lot of credit goes to Tom Crawford, who, I don't know if you all know Tom Crawford or not, but he's been around here for a long time, and he keeps that thing ticking like a clock. So a lot of credit to Tom Crawford. Earl mentioned Tower Hill painting, but we were out there last week, so I went ahead and just got another picture, an updated picture of it. You can see it from the road pretty well. It does stand out. It's very, very beautiful, actually sitting up on the hill. It blends in well with the skyline, but that's just the base coat. So we've got additional coats to go on in the near future, probably in the next couple of weeks, and then actually had the stencil that we discussed in previous meetings applied. So once we have that, we'll have an open house. We'll have, let everybody come up and visit, and we'll probably have some refreshments, but we'll also, discuss some of the items that were done as far as the prep work, the repairs, and just kind of talk through some of that information on site, and just let the folks get up there and have a good view of the city of Danville. It's really elevated, and it's really beautiful up there. This is the McKinney Phase 1A waterline project. This is, there's still some discussion going on with PSC related to this project right now. When I say that, that's facilitated through McKinney Water Department and their applications with PSC. to install some additional booster pump stations at the end of Airport Road, increase water capacity east side of Danville, and construct a water main from Airport Road to Highway 300 and 1295. So they're still working through some items on that. So we'll hear more from them in the future about PSC's response to their inquiries. The US 150 Utility Commission, Earl and I have met with them a couple times now. We've got a lot of positive feedback on this corridor project overall. A lot of support. We've got folks already that have shown interest to the point that they've also, through their various commission meetings, have, we're gone ahead and recorded either an ordinance or something to that effect, showing their commitment to this 150 Utility Commission. You've got, of course, Danville, you've got Stanford, McKinney, Crab Orchard, Broadhead, West Rock Castle, Mount Vernon, and in the near future, you'll probably have Lancaster also. So you've got a lot of commitment. Now we get to the point that we'll elect a chair in the future, but also get down into the details of design and planning, cost estimating, and that type of approach as far as a large water main along the 150 corridor all the way into Mount Vernon. These are some fiscal 26 projects coming up in the near future. This US Highway 150 booster pump station right there in the top left corner is related to the McKinney project, but also to water capacity on the whole east side of Danville. This Highway 2168 water line, that is a cleaner water grant that we've gotten. That's a roughly $900,000 cleaner water grant plus local match on that. Total is $1.6 million. Installation of over 16,500 linear feet, 12-inch water main from Kentucky Highway 33 to Highway 127. Provide redundancy and hydraulic capacity. So in the near future, we'll be advertising for a design on that and then move immediately into construction once we get environmental clearance. Lebanon Road Phase 2, Clark's Run, that's what Rich is going to drill into in just a second. Y'all are pretty familiar with that whole discussion too. We've got some EDA funds there. We got some KIA funds attached to that, and I'll let Rich discuss some of the details on that. We've got it's like I mentioned earlier, part of that EDA requirement is having a public meeting to discuss environmental impacts. So that's what we're planning to have in the near future. East Main Sewer Force Main Rehab. This is just a force main rehab on the east side of town to address some capacity needs, replacing about 2,000 linear feet of 14-inch force main and air release valves. This is a problem area that we've had. We've had some line breaks on this pump station before or on the force main. We just want to try to rehab that and get that in a better situation than what we've had in years past. And then fiscal 26, you've heard me talk about lead and copper. We've actually made up some pretty good ground recently with lead and copper. We've got, I think if you added up everything as far as funding that we've sought and have gotten confirmed on, we've gotten somewhere in the tune of over $4 million to go towards lead and copper from KIA and SRF. So we've been really proactive in pursuing those funds, and they've been gracious enough to provide those funds. So a lot of it's just planning, a lot of it's lead service line replacement, and then design overall to take that forward for EPA and divisional water approval. So we're moving forward on that. And then the CMOM, you've heard me talk about that. That's just a self-evaluation. That's a regulatory requirement that we've got to maintain. So it's still a critical aspect of what we've got to have with EPA and DOW. Then fats, oil, and grease, you've heard me talk about that. That's essentially a program to help facilitate the grease traps in a lot of the restaurants. We need to do a better job of facilitating the clean outs of those grease traps so we can maintain our system a little bit better and doesn't impact adjacent property owners when there's backups in the sewer lines. And then PFAS discussions too. You've heard me talk about PFAS. Obviously this is a 5-year program on the drinking water side. There's a drinking water and a wastewater side to this conversation. In the interim, right now, according to EPA and DOW, the wastewater conversation is kind of taking a back seat from a regulatory side, but there's still a lot, the heat is still on the drinking water side. So the good thing about that for the city of Danville, you've heard me talk about the GAC filters that we have in our system, right, at the water plant. We're set up very well to provide clean water to our customers, and it does relate to this PFAS conversation. So I think back in 2019, there was a lot of research around the state of Kentucky about different water providers that may or may not have PFAS impacts in their drinking water system. A lot of that's based on your source water, right? Our source water is Lake Harrington. But with the modern technology that we have in our water treatment plant, our PFAS output is actually zero. So, which is really good because their regulations are in parts per trillion talks. So you're talking about minuscule amounts. Well, we're even below that, which is really good for us. But it's a really high standard for a lot of other water providers around the state. So it's a very challenging regulatory requirement for a lot of folks, but it's also very expensive, or it can be, as far as finding out ways to administer that. So
how do you pronounce that P word?
polyfluoral alcohol.
Wow, he just threw that right out there.
So,
You could have
so
said
what
anything,
is
I
so what
thought.
is that? So that's like water retardant chemicals, like on your rain jackets, on your rain boots, like the
Okay,
Gore-Tex
yeah.
type approach. And then there's a lot of other things too that PFAS, can or has been tied to since the 1940s. So you've got nonstick cookware, you've got microwave popcorn bags, you've got candy wrappers, you've got, the chemicals that made these glasses, you've got, stain-resistant carpets. So it's literally everywhere, which is the challenge, right? I mean, everybody wants to be able to adhere to regulatory concerns from EPA and DOW, but the challenge is it's literally in a lot of things that already exist, right? So it's a challenge on the drinking water side from your source water, because you have runoff from chemicals. Farmers still need to farm, but you have runoff. Some of your pesticides and such may have PFAS in it. Well, that can affect your drinking water, right, your source water. But it also affects you on the sewer side too, because the sewer is having to deal with everything that comes through the system of the customer base, right? So a lot of the stuff that gets, literally flushed down the toilet, whether it's chemicals or whatever, from an industrial standpoint, you have to address those through the PFAS regulations. And we're not quite there yet, even simply because the regulations haven't been finalized. So that'll be a further discussion in the future from a sewer standpoint. Drinking water is already in hand, and there's a 5-year process to do that. Again, which we're in the catbird seat as far as a lot of other providers are on the drinking water side. So hopefully that makes sense. But and then this is my last slide before I turn it over to Rich. Future funds, again, you heard me talk about earlier on the map. Wastewater treatment plant phase 2, these are big ticket items for us. $15 million for phase 2. That's a capacity improvement. So that phase 1, if you all remember, was primarily UV treatment, technological upgrades, and various things on the actual technological side of things. And then now's the question was, can we move over into the future and improve our capacity? Because you've heard me say before, it's not uncommon that you have new industries coming in, and one of their first questions is, what's your water capacity and what's your sewer capacity? So we want to be able to promote that for the city of Danville and for this region. So part of that conversation is trying to find ways to pay for something, with a price tag of about $15 million. Well, we've already got project descriptors with KIA and SRF already in the hopper. But now, again, you're compared with everybody else in the state that need funds also. And lots of times with KIA, sometimes it's easier to fund a $500,000 project than it is to fund a $15 million project. So it is what it is, but we'll stay in contact and keep the pressure on KIA. So we'll see how that goes. And we have good partnership with Bluegrass Ad. They've been really helpful, and it's facilitated through Bluegrass Ad, but they've had a change in some of their leadership recently, but they haven't missed a beat. We're working with a guy named Casey Cash. He's been very helpful for us. We met with him about a month ago, and we went through all of our projects on the water and sewer side and built out those project descriptors and updated those. So, and I did tell him that, you know, one of our, at least on the sewer side, our two primary focuses right now is the sewer force main, Spears Creek, and the wastewater plant phase 2. So, and again, that sewer force main for Spears Creek, that's a $7 million price tag too. That's an estimate, obviously, but that's a large price tag, 20,000 linear feet. You're talking about going across half of the city of Danville. Improving capacity and upgrading from a 14-inch force main to a larger capacity force main. So that's a pretty big deal. It's a long corridor. You will have some environmental impacts that you have to work through on the regulatory side too. But that helps build out the whole efficiency of the upgrades that we did at the Spears Creek pump station up there on the northeast side of town. So we've upgraded the pumps and done all the electrical upgrades, the control panels and everything up there. And now it's a question of can we increase the size of the force main itself so we can totally benefit from all the work that we've done? And those just kind of build on themselves. So, and again, KIA is fully aware of those improvements that we made, and they consider all that stuff when they look at some of the checking the boxes on some of these projects as far as review. So, if you all have any questions.
On the fats, the oils.
Yeah.
Does the city go out and help the restaurants, or do the restaurants have to do it themselves?
Well, the restaurants are primarily, they're made to self-report. So we have a program. It's just we need to get in a better position to maintain the communication with the restaurants. So if the restaurants make a change or somebody else moves into the same footprint, that it's understood what the expectations are on the fats, oil, and grease program. So we reached out to a consultant to provide some programmatic information on what others, she's worked with a lot of other cities and has a really good relationship with DOW and EPA, which is good for us. But she's kind of providing the game plan that we can better hone those communication skills with a lot of those restaurants and provide a level of expectation for those guys and provide regulatory oversight and then train our folks to do a better job, hopefully in the future, of going out and doing spot inspections on a lot of these folks.
Yeah, our program would look more like an audit of their self-reporting information. They should have files at each location, that kind of thing. And so how to structure that's what we're seeking advice for, because at the end of the day, when we're evaluated, we need to do what everybody else is doing at minimum. We can do more, and we always end up doing more, but just on the nature of it. But we want to at least make sure we're doing what reasonable cities our size are doing. And so that's why we're asking advice. But really, you're looking at audit, which is the way I would phrase it, probably, just for so the impression's correct. But they're required to test, keep their records, and we want to audit those to make sure they're compliant.
And they're required to, have somebody come in as a septic service or something, come out and clean out those grease traps also. And they have to denote, on their audit of when they had that done and who did it.
Because I didn't know, and that's just a question, all the stormwater that came in and all this, did our plant have any problems of holding?
Oh, the water
sewage?
plant or the waste? The sewer
wastewater.
plant? Well.
Not that we want to say, but I just wondered.
Yeah, so, City of Danville does have an aging, sewer system. We do have some I&I that does, groundwater that, when I say I&I, inflow and infiltration. So it actually gets into the old sewer system in certain points. And we do have larger than normal flows, especially, with what we had, last month.
Yeah.
That was a lot of water. So,
Yeah.
for example, I showed Earl a map of the state of Kentucky, and he may have shared it with you all, but I just texted it to him, but he may in the future. But it was just a general map of estimated rainfall on a 4-day total for the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, I did send that out. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, so the Western Kentucky corridor up into Louisville, according to Mesonet, which is a weather estimating program, is really what it is. And it documents rainfall, right? Especially in severe weather. And it's monitored through WKU, Western Kentucky University. they estimated that the rainfall that fell through that Western Kentucky corridor essentially from Paducah up into Louisville was a 1,000-year storm, right? So when you hear me talk, and you'll hear Josh talk about a 100-year storm, you know, when we're talking about stormwater design, for example, 100-year storm, 100-year storm. Well, that's a certain benchmark that, you know, that we look at as far as designing a culvert or a bridge or different things. And that's you know, the professional standard for most parts. You don't design to a 1,000-year storm, right? That's a 0.1% chance of happening in a given year, which is slim to none. Well, it can happen. And luckily, we you know, didn't have we had a lot of rainfall. We didn't have severe intensities at times, right? So, you know, Western Kentucky, Paducah had almost 16 inches of rainfall in 4 days, which is, if we got that, I mean, you're talking about, you know, a big deal. Now, we have plenty, don't get me wrong, and you can have a lot of rainfall in an extended period of time. If you condense that into 4 days, then you may have a problem. And it's the intensities of that rainfall. So you could have high intensity rainfall for a short duration, and it really overpowers your stormwater system. Or you could have the same amount of rainfall over a longer period of time, and it has a chance to die down over time, and it doesn't immediately run into those culverts or those bridges, right? Well, Western Kentucky didn't really have that capability. It was a lot of rain, really high intensity in a very short duration. Over 4 days, 16 inches over 4 days, a lot of water.
Yeah.
So thoughts and prayers go to those guys. I mean, they're still recovering, you know, obviously. And then you fast forward to the eastern edge of the state, and I think, you know, Harlan County, for example, had less than an inch in 4 days. And you have Paducah with 16. So just something to think about, you know, in the future when we think about some of the impacts. But
Thank you.
yep.
Let me add this too. We're trying to repeat our information for you. So Marshall gave his budget presentation a couple weeks ago. This is an update on that. I would refer you and thank Melanie and all the management team for filling it out, but the file that you have access to, the spreadsheet you have access to, look at that and go through it. It's got a lot of useful updates. What we acknowledge is that we're touching a lot of bases. It is, as you can see just from his report, Josh's report will indicate the same thing. The police, the fire, all the departments are doing that. Randy, for example, Lee, we know the audits, you know, we got an audit schedule, for example. So we're touching a lot of bases, and it's hard for us to remember to communicate exactly what we're doing in any given week. And so we're trying to repeat some of those things that we do, which is thank Marshall and Josh for putting the reports together. But look at those spreadsheets, and Melanie's done a good job. And if you have information that you want that is not on there, let us know, and Melanie and I can work together to try to make that a cleaner, more simple presentation of those schedules. And it's just a quick snapshot. If you can look at it, identify the task, you can see who's working on it, which department, and what the last update is. As well as any money that's involved with it, I think is the goal too. And so, like I said, that's an effort, and if you see any improvements on it that you want, just let us know.
I appreciate the reports.
I'll turn it over to Rich and do a brief presentation on the Phase 2 sewer project. Yep.
All right, thanks, Marshall. We'll keep this pretty brief. This is kind of a preview of the public meeting that we'll have, planning to have next week, which is a requirement of Kentucky Division of Water to get the environmental approval for the project. So we'll be having that probably next week. So this is the Phase 2 of the Lebanon Road Clarks Run Trunk Sewer. And this map shows the extent of the project. So Phase 1 is the upper end, which is off to the left, and that went all the way down to really below Stewart's Lane, like where the Head Start building is, and that's where it ended. So we're going to pick up from that point, continue the sewer improvements downstream all the way to the lagoon on Woods Drive, which is where the wastewater plant was until 1979. So, yeah, so that's phase 2. We'll pick up where phase 1 left off. And the blue, we're talking about floodplain. The light blue is the 100-year floodplain on this map. The darker blue is the regulatory floodway. So a good deal of this sewer is in the floodplain. So some of the drivers for this sewer project really goes back to the Megget expansion of a few years ago. At that time, we did a little study, HDR did, for the city, looking at how we could increase sewer capacity of the Clark's Run trunk. And we concluded that the best approach was to maximize capacity upstream of the lagoon on Woods Drive and basically make it as big as you could and not overwhelm the downstream sewer. So in 1979, there was a new sewer line constructed from there to the current wastewater plant. So the capacity increases shortly downstream of that lagoon. So we're maximizing the capacity kind of upstream of that lagoon. So it serves anything that drains to Clark's Run, basically drains to the sewer. So that's all of Corporate Drive. That's a lot of property on the 127 bypass. It's a lot of property between 4th Street and the bypass on both sides of Clark's Run. So there's a lot of undeveloped property there that could be served by this as well. So phase 1, as I said, 11,500 feet of sewer, 24-inch at the lower end to 18 to 12-inch at the upper end, all the way to Megget. It cost $3.2 million construction cost. It was bid in 2021, completed early in 2023. So it took a little over a year to construct. Included crossings of the 127 bypass and Lebanon Road by Bore and Jack. There was a lot of rock removal, a lot of extremely hard rock, especially west of the bypass, that really slowed the contractor down. It was a tough construction project, but they got through it and got it finished. So the phase 2 project, as I said, will continue. We'll keep going downstream. So we'll go all the way to the Woods Drive Lagoon. We have to cross the Norfolk Southern Railroad with a long bore under the railroad. And that railroad permits took a long time to get. We do finally have it. It's a long process. We estimate the construction cost $6.3 million in 2025 dollars. The total project about 7.6. So this will be 30-inch at the lower end, then 27, 24, and 15. And then there's some connections to some smaller lines as well. The lower end, so there's a lot of property along this route that's city property, which is good and bad. It's good in that you don't have to get a lot of new easements, but it's bad in the sense that you're going to impact some city property. And included in that is the area along Woods Drive. So we had to, there's an old city landfill in there east of Michael Smith Park. And to make sure we didn't get into that landfill with the excavation, we rerouted the sewer down Woods Drive. So the new sewer line will follow Woods Drive from 2nd Street down to the lagoon. So we will, as I said, follow Woods Drive, cross 2nd Street, then we'll just be following Clark's Run, essentially through the middle of town. So we have 2 locations where we'll cross Clark's Run. We have a Bore and Jack crossing of 3rd and 4th Street. We have the railroad crossing, as we said. So part of it eliminates existing sewer, part of it reinforces the existing sewer. One of the major benefits we expect will be reduced inflow, reduced infiltration. So less stormwater, less groundwater getting into the sewer, which frees up capacity for wastewater. And we're essentially optimizing the capacity to the lagoon. The city did get an Economic Development Authority grant for just under $2 million. Those grants aren't easy to get. We had to show beneficiaries. So there were several beneficiaries up on the industrial end that helped the city get that grant. And then the remainder of the project, about $5.6 million, will be paid for with KIA revolving loan funds. So environmental impacts, that's what they want us to talk about at the public meeting. In the short term, you know, the gravity sewers are deep. So on the lower end will be 15 to 20 feet deep. On the upper end, more like 10 to 12. But there's going to be a lot of rock excavation. It's going to be a lot of excavation, period. So it does impact, it does create short-term disruptions and messes. As I said, the two crossings of Clark's Run, and we try to make those when the flows are low, when it's just reasonably dry. And a lot of times they create a temporary dam situation, and they pipe the flow through so they can get their equipment in there and work and put the sewer line in. So there's obviously short-term disruption to the stream. We've just got a couple of private property easements on this project. There's tree removal. We try to keep it to a minimum, but in that 20 to 30 foot corridor where the sewer is being installed, there's going to be trees taken out. I think it was more extensive actually on phase 1 than it will be on phase 2. And there'll be some temporary bypass pumping, especially where the sewer is going in the same location as the existing one. So they got to bypass that pump around as they're constructing. Long-term, we're trying to avoid what's in the upper picture there, which is sanitary sewer overflows. So they do occur periodically when the sewers just get overwhelmed. Usually it's stormwater that's overwhelming. So we will improve the water quality in Clark's Run with this project because we will minimize overflows. The infrastructure will be renewed, which means you'll have less reactive maintenance, less problems due to insufficient capacity or blockages or breaks, those sorts of things. And, you know, sanitary sewers is part of the basic infrastructure of the city, just like roads. So this is going to improve the city system for decades to come and meet all the needs that you have within this area of the watershed for the foreseeable future. I think that was the last slide I had, so any questions?
Do you have to fence the whole area off if you're near a park?
I'm not sure what we'll do at Michael Smith Park. The work will be done up next to the road.
Oh,
So it'll be
okay.
like a 20, 25-foot strip that'll be impacted mostly. We may have to do some temporary fencing just to
A lot of
keep
kids
people.
hanging around.
Yeah, keep people away from the excavations.
Okay.
But they won't be able to leave open excavations. They'll have to keep everything either backfilled or fenced off when they leave the site.
Starting date?
So we have to have this public meeting to get our final Division of Water approval. We've got some soil borings we want to do. We need railroad entry for, but we're hoping to bid it early this summer and then get construction started in the fall. It's about a year's construction project.
Is that grant funding from the EDA, do we have to match anything, or is that all on them, or?
Yeah, the city has to match the
Okay.
remaining funds, but you're doing that with the KIA loan, so
Okay.
that's acceptable match.
They allowed us to use the KIA SRF money as our local match. So, which worked out
Didn't it?
really well for us.
Yeah.
Made up the gap.
You did good on that, Marcia.
Yeah, thank you all for going in for the money.
Yeah. Other questions or comments to these guys?
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Man. Mr. Morgan. Oh, you got one?
I got one more.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's not another presentation.
Not a presentation.
Sorry, sir, you had your time.
You want me to go ahead? Sorry.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the next agenda item. This is in reference to contract amendment number 8 for HDR Engineering Incorporated, which Rich Smith is obviously part of. This contract amendment and scope of work, this is for an additional fee for the Spears Creek Pump Station improvements that we talked about during the presentation. This was, you know, again, lots of times when you have a project that's, has a lot of intricate technology and pump, you have to go through the process of requesting RFI. So the contractor will request an RFI, request for information, and then HDR will facilitate those conversations and then seek additional input and feedback for all those RFIs. So we had additional RFIs on the project. We had additional construction timeframe on the project. So therefore, you had additional shop drawing reviews. You had additional project, monthly project meetings with the contractor, review of pay estimates, and updates for the funding agencies in preparation of change orders. So there's, anytime you have an extended window of construction on a project, you have a lot of those things that go hand in hand with that additional time frame. For example, I think EPA, we went back and forth with EPA, I think 11 times on one particular aspect. So we felt like we were addressing those questions early on, but apparently it just wasn't working out. So thanks to Rich and HDR for providing that feedback to them in facilitating those conversations. This, as far as the budgeting and financial impact, we're looking at a $50,000 additional to HDR to cover those additional fees with the extended construction period.
Okay. So Chair, to entertain a motion for Resolution 2025-04-1401. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you all. Any other questions or comments to Mr. Marshall? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you all. While Marshall's walking the clicker over, y'all want to try to guess the street on the slide tonight?
My guess is Indian Hills area.
Shawnee. So yes, it's in Indian Hills. That's Shawnee. All right, I'll try to make this quick. It's been a long night. Rick and I were talking about this presentation. Rick Henry, the Public Works Director, and I, we usually meet early in the week and talk last week, and he works on pictures and things to kind of update what we've done. And it was kind of tricky because it's November through now. November was the last time I did a presentation, and not a whole lot gets done during those few months just due to weather. So, but even saying that, when we first started talking, once he started actually digging into it, we've accomplished a lot the past few months. So I really want to highlight some of the projects they've been doing, and that's going to be our focus this year as we get into the good weather season. It's small projects. We're going to try to get some little small wins. All the drainage issues we had last weekend, highlighted a lot of things that have been kind of been lingering for a while that we're going to put a good focus to. So we'll talk about some of that tonight. So sidewalk projects. This picture is Swope Drive. This is a sidewalk they just completed a few weeks ago. They kind of spanned over the winter, working through the bad weather. They did a great, this is all done by Public Works staff. They did a great job. Got a lot of compliments about this. This is a highly traveled pedestrian area. And that road was not quite wide enough for 2 cars and a person to fit as well when people would use it. So we've really added a lot of safety benefits here. They've moved over onto West Lexington now, the under construction list. There's a section of West Lexington that was initially funded by some homeowners out there that some tree roots and some driveways were causing issues, and it's very narrow. So we're widening the sidewalk slightly. It's going to look tight, but there is still enough room for 2 cars and a parked car. A lot of people park on that south side there as you're between St. Mildred's and Swope, and it seems tight, but once we're done, where the curb will be placed, there'll be approximately 30 feet, which is plenty of room for 2 vehicles and a parked car. If the parked car is close enough to the curbs, that's something we'll keep an eye on. And then also have on here Second and Walnut as we continue to work on those corners. That's next on, as soon as they get done on West Lexington, they're going to move back there and focus on that again. Upcoming this year, after Second and Walnut, they're going to move to Russell and Roy Arnold. This is something we've been talking to Center College about for a while to help with some of the speeding issues through there. We're going to work on some raised crosswalks maybe at that intersection to see if we can help them out. And just that area it has gotten busier since we did the streetscape project. I think during that project, people got in a habit of using that corridor more. So it is busier and people go very fast to make up time, and we're gonna try to work on that. And then we've got a couple other sidewalks that we're eyeing in the future. North Maple on the east side, from Maple Tree Place up to Cross Hill. That will enable that neighborhood, Quail Manor, to get to the sidewalk on Maple Avenue. And then Kentucky Avenue, there's a gap there that a lot of kids use for school from Alta over to Lexington. And there's that little dip down that goes from Lexington to Alta that is not very safe to walk on, and a lot of kids walk in that area. So we're going to see what we can do at Kentucky Avenue. That's going to take some coordination with some property owners. That'll be the tricky part of that project, is getting us the space to do the work. Here's some more pictures. On the left, that's more of Swope. In the middle, that's West Lexington. You see where we've started to widen it there as we approach those driveways. That's a really tricky part of these old streets that people don't realize. To put in a nice, safe sidewalk, that's especially if we want to try to get ADA compliant, is when driveways cross those sidewalks, they're usually very steep. So to do that, that's one of the things we've done here. We've widened that sidewalk slightly, one, to just make it a better sidewalk, but two, it increases the length of that ramp, which makes that cross slope not quite so bad. So that's a technique you'll see us use sometimes to make the sidewalk a little easier to use. And I know a lot of kids ride their bikes on this to Tolliver, so it's hard when you hit a sideways ramp on your bike. I don't want it to kick them out into the road. And then the picture on the right is at Second and Walnut, kind of that completed corner, which has another great improvements to the ramps there. The ramps at that intersection were really bad, and there's a lot more usable now if someone's in a wheelchair. Traffic calming, we've put in speed humps on Old Lexington and Rebel Road. We've got a lot of good positive feedback for those. That's a picture that's Rebel Road, kind of the southern end of it. We put 2 at each of those locations. Upcoming, we're going to do, we've been talking to Danville schools about something on Jackson Street, the little stub street that goes next to the high school and the board office. That is a city street. We're going to kind of use that as a test run for our folks doing a speed hump out of asphalt, because those are a little tricky to get just right. There's a particular technique to it. So we're going to kind of use that after they get out of school in May or early June, to when there's not a lot of traffic there. We're going to try to work on that, and that will enable us to kind of do those in-house from now on, because those rubber composite speed humps, they're pretty tricky to put down, and they're kind of expensive. So if we could do those in-house with asphalt, it would save us a lot of money in the future. And then we've got West Walnut. We're talking to Center College about some raised crosswalks on West Walnut. And we've got North Fifth. We need to figure out something there at the Fifth and Broadway intersection to kind of slow folks down a little bit. And then Seminole Trail's another one that's showing up on our radar a lot with a lot of requests from residents out there to kind of slow folks down. We may look at something at that Seminole and Nokomis intersection to slow folks down. We may look at a mini roundabout or something. We'll see if that'll fit. We'll talk about that more in the future. More projects that Public Works has worked on. I wanted to, drainage, I don't really have anything completed to say here about drainage because you don't really work on drainage projects in the winter and spring when it's wet. But upcoming, this is kind of our list of things I know we're going to get to fairly quickly. We've got a whole nother list of things that we need to investigate a little more and come up with a repair plan from coming out of the storm last week. We got to replace an inlet on East Walnut there in front of Morley's. We've paved that road so much that the inlets are very small now. We just need to replace a couple of those inlets. We need to do some ditching on East Main out the very end past Hillendale. Brookhaven, we've got a swell that's in some backyards on Brookhaven in Streamland that we need to regrade. It's ponding and it's actually eroding around a manhole. I need to go out and look at it with Marshall sometime. And then we have inlets at Lexington and 4th. You may have seen some cones on those, Lexington and 4th Street. Those inlets have started to collapse, so we're going to get those repaired. And then Swope Drive, some culvert cleaning we're going to do there. Those culverts apparently were full of debris during this last storm and overtopped the road. And then some other miscellaneous projects. The picture is Millennium Park Pond Trail that we built a few weeks ago. Got folks down to the bank on that eastern side where most folks like to fish from. And this is, Tommy will say this is our most shared post on Facebook he's had since he's been here when we posted that, and most positivity they'd received. So they're pretty happy with that. Trailhead benches, I have a picture here later. We did some trailhead benches out on Corporate Drive and at Lebanon Road. And then upcoming, we're gonna work to expand the parking at Jenny Rogers. That's really high on our list once the weather starts to break and we can get some paving done. We've woven wire parking lot. We were gonna add some gravel parking there this year. And then Denmark Drive, they started working, I think today, on patching that utility cut at Denmark. But we need to do some curbing. We need to widen that road slightly where they turn in off of the bypass. So we're gonna do some work on Denmark this summer as well. Cemeteries, updated rules and regulations, the proposed versions on the website. You all received that email about that last week. We're going to start receiving comments on it for 90 days and then come back to you all later with some recommendations. We've already come up with some good ideas. The cemetery committee had a good meeting last week. We talked about it a little bit more. Fee schedule, we went over that at the cemetery committee last week. They wanted some time to look at it. We didn't have a quorum last week as well, so they wanted some time to look at it and then come back at their next meeting when they had a quorum and make some decisions on it. But it seemed to be a positive conversation. And then we'll have some capital improvements at one of the upcoming budget meetings. Wayfinding signage, trying to get this moving a little bit quicker. Our downtown directory signs are installed. You've all seen those downtown. They turned out great. Phase 2 of wayfinding, I need to put some effort into that and come back to you all with some recommendations. Hopefully do that over the next couple of months. And then our welcome signs, this is an updated picture. Melanie and I have been looking at wood samples to try to narrow that down a little bit. And I think I should have a final cost to bring back to you all very soon to get your approval on so we can get those built. I think that's the next step. If we get a cost approved, is they'll start putting those into construction. Stormwater program. So this is the picture I put on here just to give you all an update on it. This has been a topic of discussion tonight. That's Twin Brook. That's the plan for the Twin Brook culvert replacement. It shows the box culvert replacing the old pipe. The issue I want to show you all is the 2 dash lines kind of on the bottom side of the road going through the culvert. That is a water and a gas line that currently the gas goes over and the water goes under. So we're going to have to move both of those lines to put in the new box culvert. So that's slowing things down a little bit right now, but I still think we're on track for construction this summer. Especially seeing how much water is in that creek right now. We'll need to wait till it dries up a little bit more before we do that project. Stormwater manual still kind of on hold until the permit gets updated. And MJ and I are currently working on the subbasin assessment in-house. I think that's going well. We've been out doing some mapping and looking at some different, infrastructure down on the south, that's the southwest side of town. I wanted to list kind of contracted street and drainage projects. This is things that we're looking to get someone else to work on, just because we have piled so many projects on public works staff that we're going to look to contract more out. The Boffman Avenue sidewalks, we were really close to getting the right-of-way for that. There were 3 properties we need to get right-of-way on at the intersection of Boffman and Waveland. 2 have indicated they are ready to go. 1 is a new owner that we're trying to get a hold of. So we're working on that. As soon as we get those right-of-way agreements, we'll bring those back to you all for approval and get them signed. And at that point, the grant office out of KYTC will sign off on the project for us to bid it. Looking for, as soon as we could possibly get that bid out and go in this summer, we will. Skywatch at Starbucks. This is the picture I have on here, is the new striping plan for Skywatch at Starbucks, which it's going to be a little interesting when we first put this out. We're going to have Central Seal do all this work. We were going to try to do a little bit of it with them, but we've just decided to put all the signage, all the striping, all the delineators, or at least some of those little bollard delineators like the state used out by Walmart to keep people from running over the stripes. The goal here, your main flow of traffic right now is coming from the Kroger side. So we're going to try to keep that free flowing. The restricted movement in this new setup is going to be traffic coming from the east, coming from the Starbucks, Hobby Lobby area, Tractor Supply area on Skywatch is going to be restricted. They're going to have to come down from the liquor bar area to get to the intersection and through it. And we'll see how this works. Earl and I have talked about this for years and thrown out different ideas for years, and we're just going to have to do something. With Chick-fil-A opening and that intersection opening up on the other side, it's really caused an issue where before traffic could just free flow out of here when they had the green light, and now they have to wait on traffic coming out of Chick-fil-A, which has really made it a lot more difficult. So we've got to free them up a little bit more again. So that's something we will put out a lot of notice about it to the public. And hopefully that it goes well.
That's going to be tough.
And then some drainage projects. Dillahay, we're going to replace a culvert on Dillahay. We've got a contractor looking at that. And I was out looking last week at South 2nd there, across from KSD, between Jacobs and Fackler. We've got to do something with the ditching and pipes and culverts down through there. They're not able to handle large storms, and it's causing a lot of issues with the roads. So we're going to look at a project there that we'll try to contract that out because that'll be a fairly sizable project. Trail system, we've woven wire. We're meeting out there Friday. I've got some signage ordered to put up to kind of guide people on the existing trail to help out with that. We're going to look at expansion, and we talked about previously at another meeting, the city was awarded a $150,000 grant for the 2168 trail extension. So we'll hopefully receive that money in the next couple of years. This is one of the benches, kiosks that Public Works built. I believe that's out at the end of Corporate Drive. So, yeah, that's it. Any questions? I ran through that really, really fast, I feel like, but I know that it's been a long meeting and there's a lot of information.
I like what y'all have drawn in for the Starbucks entrance, That's going to be interesting to see how that goes over early. People.
But change is hard.
Crazy.
Change is hard,
absolutely.
so we'll have to weather the storm.
But it looks like it'll do the trick once everybody gets used to it. Got to be better than it is now.
I like all the sidewalks, they're doing a great job. I mean, if they can do that themselves in-house is really good.
And Glenn Ball was coming tonight to thank you for the Swope Drive project. Give a report for all of his neighbors, but didn't make it tonight. Josh, I know MJ went out to our East Main location. You get any feedback? She's coming to see me Thursday.
Oh, well, we have an issue on East Main. This is at the top of the hill, really, which is kind of odd for these kind of situations. It's really top of the hill. We have some backyards that are flooding pretty bad. They really impacted greatly one particular house on Kentucky Avenue, actually, that backs up to that.
Yeah.
They had 4 or 5 feet of water in their basement. We're trying to figure out a solution. It's an odd, I mean, Earl's been dealing with it. It's been there we at least know for 50 years. This has been at least somewhat of 50, somewhat of an issue. But it's really coming to a point now that we're going to try to figure something out. The hard part is there's not a good solution to it. But MJ's working on some stuff. She's emailing with some folks. We're actually, since it is a sinkhole, we've been emailing with folks down in Bowling Green that we know from some networking with the Kentucky Stormwater Association. So trying to look at it from their perspective as a from groundwater injection kind of stuff. So we're trying to figure out a solution. We're working on that. So hopefully we'll have something this summer, something we can work on to help out a little bit with that situation.
Did you or MJ go next door to see all the concrete in the other yard? You had like 2/3 of the yard in concrete.
No, I hadn't seen that. No, I
And it
didn't.
was dry. Went past the concrete down to 221 and 223. It's like, weird.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention, we had a hole open up on Southtown today. I think you were texting with me earlier about it. We just found out about it this afternoon. I know our guys went out right before they went home for the day, put some barrels around it to keep folks out of it, and then we'll be there working on it as quickly as we can. We're not sure if it's a pipe that has collapsed or if it's just kind of an area that's over time a void has opened up on the road that has collapsed. So we'll be doing some investigations over the next few days, try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, they're going to look at the barrels again while we're sitting here, and hopefully, if they have to plate it, they will.
Been getting a lot of good feedback at a four-way stop, 3rd and Lexington.
Yeah, I've had a really positive experience with it myself. I use that intersection quite a bit, and I feel like it's performing better than I thought it would. I went through it this morning at 7:40 and went right through it with one stop. We do hear some concerns about people running the stop signs. So I think we're going to, after I was talking to the state about it, they're going to come down and do some observations. I think they need to be discreet about those observations so people don't think they're being watched, to watch how they act when they think nobody's watching them. So we'll hopefully get some good observational data about how people are using it, and then keeping track with police about how many are we having crashes because of the new signal operation or not. So. But yeah, I think
they ran it the way it was too, the stoplight.
Yeah, so
They didn't wanna sit
you
through
got to
the whole
compare it
cycle
to
of
you got to compare it to
thing.
baseline data, right? You got to look
Yeah.
at what it was before and see what it's doing now. But yeah, it's really handling the volume very well. And I go through there at 6 a.m. to take my son to school, and it's great. Then you stop once it go because you don't get caught by the red light while it cycles around to everybody. So.
Okay, any other questions, Josh? He has the next 2 items on the agenda.
Yeah. Next, we have, we annually review the Municipal Road Aid Co-op Agreement with KYTC. This program enables us we get our funding in 3 installments instead of monthly. And then there's a 3% that gets held that we have access to an emergency fund if necessary. We haven't had to utilize that yet. But yeah, we recommend approval of this co-op agreement again.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
I move for approval of Resolution 2025-04-1402.
Thank you, sir. Is there a
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you all. This is Tommy Barton for the next one.
I'll be handling this one for Tommy. I didn't really want to make you sit through all this tonight and do this last. So Tommy's been working on getting quotes for our fireworks display this year. We know last year we had a new vendor do it last year. We had it wasn't up to the standards I think most people had for our show. So we went out, we got prices from that same vendor, but we got prices from a couple more. Prices have gone up a lot for fireworks. This doesn't surprise us with the way things are right now, especially things coming in from outside the country. So the cost we got for for the fireworks show from our vendor from last year, they were going to be $22,000 for the same show we got last year, which we didn't feel like was sufficient. So when we asked for more, that price went up even more, up into the high 20s. Tommy was contacted by this company. They're called Pyro Shows. They have a kind of a regional rep that's local to Danville. They reached out to Tommy, said, "Hey, we'd love to do your show." They tried to talk us into not doing it on the 4th because they're going to be doing 9 shows that night. This company does 9 shows on one night. So this is a very large company. They do a lot of NFL games. They do NASCAR races. This is probably the biggest outfit we've had do our fireworks yet. So they came in with a price of $25,000, said they could do a good show compared to what we're used to having for $25,000, which we thought was a great price. It's up from $16,000 last year, which is a big jump. But after Tommy went around and tried to get prices, he worked on this for a few months. We really felt like this was our best option to go with. So we're asking tonight for that contract to be approved. The county has indicated that they're willing to work with us on the price. We've told them it's going up. We've kind of indicated it's going to be up in this range. And they've indicated they're going to be willing to work with us. I don't know if they'll meet us halfway completely, but I think they'll work with us at least in the at least 10,000 range, maybe up to this 12.5 to split it with us evenly. So Tommy will be going to them and asking for a match after you all approve this, if you all approve this tonight.
Well, Thomas just asked him to foot the whole bill. It's a good start.
I can pass that along to him and tell him that.
Okay, Commissioner, what's your pleasure on the fireworks contract?
I'll vote for acceptance of Resolution 2025-04-1403.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions or comments? All those in,
In the contract, it says 12.5, or do we need to change that up to 12.5? Since you don't know what the county's gonna do, or we hope, are we good?
say up to 25.
Up to 25.
That's fine. I mean, I think it's, as long as we approve, if the amount is less than that, then I think it's okay.
Ours will be more than that.
Yeah, they asked for half down.
I'll have to.
So, yeah, we'll have to, that'll be some.
And that's fairly standard from what our previous vendors did or required, because they have to apparently order it.
You're buying stored materials, which is
Yeah.
why it's a
Yeah.
little bit different than a normal contract. You're not giving them a stipend to, against future man hours. You're buying essentially stored materials for them so that they get the fireworks in hand. And so we can document that and so that we have something for the money as that transacts. But that's what you're really doing, is you're giving them a deposit for the material.
And we've traditionally we fronted the bill, and then the county pays us
Right.
back
Yeah.
later. So, that's why we usually take on this contract as a
Y'all
city.
such good guys.
If we want to say half there, half of the amount, I mean, that's okay. But since it is approximate.
Yeah.
I hope they'll pay the 12.5.
No.
The county.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll take what they give us, all right? There is a need for an executive session tonight?
Yes, sir, there is. We would ask for litigation and personnel. It won't take long. Pretty
All right, everybody
straightforward.
heard that, right? So 15 minutes or whatever. Oh. Is there a motion to go to executive session?
Sure. I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss City versus Doe litigation pursuant to KRS 618101C. And motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 618101F.
And just for clarification, it's just a pending litigation matter for which the style of the case we won't dictate.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you all. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, let's go.
Aye.
Thank you all. We're back in regular session. The city manager has some information for us.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. Staff is recommending the hiring of Matthew Hampton to the position of police officer.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve that.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you all. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner. Staff is requesting that we accept the resignation of Senior Telecommunications Officer Crystal Floyd and reclassify her to part-time.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you all. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion to adjourn? So
I'll move
moved
to
and second.
adjourn.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.